Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. If anybody misses this, of course, it is recorded. My name's Adam Mixter. We're here for the migration workshop for April 10th. I am joined by, in order of appearance on this slide,
Sorry, Dan Gritters, part of RRT. I'll be talking about the fixed tickets and things we're working on for the 14.0 release. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian, QA analyst based in the KL office. So I'm responsible mostly for project testing, customer testing, and also responsible for the release of testing guides for each CT release. Thank you.
sweet. So my job here is as developer support to talk about the migration guide changes. There's not a whole lot of interest to most folks this time around. Since the last time we were here, we essentially removed some K2 changes that were not actually in 14.0. So just some erroneous changes that were added, but hardly anyone's actually using K2 anyway, so shouldn't be a huge deal. Next up is the QA testing guide changes.
Okay, so I'll be taking over for this this part of the presentation. So for the QA testing guide updates for the migration, the first off will be the improvements on block categories and filter. So there are two parts for the entire QA testing guide updates. First one would be the block categories filter. The second one would be the CIF update crash. Now the first part would be this one, the improvements on block categories and filter. So what happens here is the developers made a fix where you're working with block, category, and filter. So imagine I have this two Fika panel configuration right here. All right, on the right, it is not a block, but on the left, it is a block. Right, in fact, the pick list over there, they are all in a block. So just imagine I wanted to hide my panels, right? Then I'll use filter just to hide the categories of panel. But right now, when you do so, it's gonna hide the entire block and not only the panels. Now, this only happens to a block in the previous release of CET, which is 13.5. So the previous workaround to this is to explode the block. Then you apply the filter, then it will work because it's not a block anymore. Then you block it again. Now, this example, I'm going to be carrying it forward to the next slide. So just remember this layout here. On the left, it is a block, including the pick list. Now on the right, it is not in the block. Next slide, please, Adam. So by looking at the animation again, a recap. If I'm going to hide panels in 13.5, which is before the fix, it's going to hide the entire block. Whereas on the right, it is not a block, so it's going to hide my panels correctly. Now, in CT 14.0 release, it's going to hide the panels correctly, even though regardless if it's in a block or not. As you can see the animation below, it's going to hide the panels correctly. Okay, so what should be tested on your end? Of course, just to make sure that everything related to the future, it works for you, all right? So first off would be the filtering of blocks in model space. Verify it applies to the correct category part tag by using your manufacturer extension snappers. And also, it's also important to make sure that this fix works in paperspace as well, because paperspace, you have a separate filter. It is not the same filter that you use to control the model space. Okay, it's going to be a separate filter. So make sure that works as well in paperspace. Verify it applies the correct category or part tag in the visibility settings. Now that includes your 2D view clip and also your 3D viewport. Now with the filters applied, ensure that the correct category part tags, they are shown in your PDF. All right. you apply the filter, make sure it is shown in the PDF and also print preview. So the next thing you want to check is to check in the exports. Okay, so that includes Graflink, IFC, your CAP, DWG, and also other export formats that you use in CT that has the option for you to filter your snappers. And also once you have exported, you can load it back into CT, that exported copy, just to make sure that the filter works. Other than that, you save the drawing with the filter applied, you load the drawing back into CT. You make sure that the filter is applied correctly. Make sure it remembers and it is safe. You could also try rendering the filter block, because if it's filtered, it won't show in the rendered output. Then you can also try creating a custom view set with the filtered blocks, just to see if it works for you. Now for the export format, it varies. So it really depends from user to user. If your manufacturer extension uses Graflink a lot, then you would want to make sure that it works for Graflink. If you're from kitchen industry, for example, they use IFC a lot, then you would want to make sure that IFC works with this fix. Okay, so that's all for this fix. I'm going to be moving on to the next one. Adam, next slide. Okay, so this is regarding the crash when you export as configurative in the reconfiguration 2. Now, for those of the users from the commercial interior industry, I believe they use reconfiguration 2 a lot. So you want to make sure that by exporting into a configurative format, it does not crash. Now, this is partly due to the missing references, which actually cause some information loss. So when you're exporting, some references were missing, so that's why it is crashing in CT 13.5. Again, what should be tested? You want to make sure that in the reconfiguration 2, you perform an order export of configurative format, ensure it does not crash. Okay, verify that the sieve export is successful, and the exported output, it is accurate. Now, if your extension has like unique information, okay, that's what we call manufacturer specific text used in the drawing, then you would want to make sure to click on the settings, right? In this order export dialog, there's this button called settings. You want to take that option, use manufacturer specific export. Again, just to make sure it doesn't crash, right? Make sure the information, it is shown correctly once you have exported. Now, you would want to repeat this process in the bill of material, just to make sure it doesn't crash on both sides. So you export once in reconfiguration 2, you export another time in your bill of material, the calculation dialog, or we call it, just to make sure it doesn't crash and whatever is shown, it is accurate. Okay, that's all for the QA testing guide updates for today's workshop. Back to you, Dan.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So some of the only known issue that no one is working on quite yet, they're still trying to grab information on, is pay-per-view crash. As far as we can tell, is related to page numbers. That's all we have for issues that we haven't started on yet. Next slide, please. So resolved issues, we have a plethora of tickets from the new downloader that is related to things getting stuck, whether it's finished or in progress, and also when inserting snappers, some of the data isn't correct. We were looking at possibly getting a hot fix out for these issues, but they're for sure coming out in 14.0, and you can probably already hopefully tell the difference in the development branch for those. But like I said, possibly a hot fix. We're waiting on the hot fix right now, just because it's they're still working on a few more scenarios where they're getting stuck, but a majority of them are fixed. So depending on where they get with that, it may or may not come out in a hot fix as well as coming out in 14.0. Other things, there's a crash when control clicking on blocks. That is fixed, as well as installations. Some of the installations getting stuck at 81%. There were some DLLs and web fixes that were put out for that. Now I know that's not going to be all of the installations getting stuck being fixed, but the particular one for the 81%er is should be resolved. Next slide, please. And the other ticket that we have that's currently being looked at is that when a new panel is added to an existing block, it's not being shown as visible. So they're working on that right now. And that is it from us.
Cool. Thanks, Dan. So this is the Q&A time for developers. I'm going to go ahead and answer a question I see that was in the chat. Is there any briefcase where we can find and download all migration webinar, dev, and QA recordings, current, past, future sessions? Find and download? No, not right now anyway. But there is, we do post these on YouTube, our YouTube channel, which I'll post in the developer briefcase when the time comes, when those are actually uploaded. That process is a little slow just because we have to have some people do some refinement and editing and stuff. I think we usually try to upload these all as one continuous thing, so all the information is just in one video. So yeah, if you have any questions about what happened previously, you can feel free to ask in the developer briefcase, or send in a ticket to dev support would actually be the preferred way of doing things. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and feel free. I will sit here and wait in awkward silence until then.
Hi, Adam. Hi, Brian. This is Aman. My question is regarding the visibility filtering or the category filtering for blocks. It's an amazing enhancement or optimization or bug fix, I can say, because the behavior was really not as it should have been. So one can say it is actually fixing something. But looking at the abstractness of how these things work together, if manufacturers are not driving from block space, do you see or are you aware of any particular scenario where things are reported that they were broken and we should focus on testing? This is only for that filtering of snappers from blocks outside. Yeah, please go ahead, Adam.
Oh yeah, so as far as like any issues that a specific manufacturer has, no, we're actually not aware of anything at this point. Mostly the change is actually adding this new category, right? So and then basically your view modes and your creative view modes, your user saved view modes, all that stuff actually has this block category added to it. So it's always possible something could go weird that we're just not aware of. But so far we don't have any reason to believe that there is going to be something wrong. Just, you know, general concern that there could be something that we're missing, because it is kind of a broad change, I guess, if that makes sense.
When you say, Adam, block category being saved in old view modes, if user saves one, are you saying that the block category will then not be explicitly visible in category visibility dialogues?
It is, as of my knowledge anyway.
Okay,
last time
fine.
I checked,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, because then end user will be able to correct the mistake. Fine.
Yep. Yeah, there's a few things we ran into, like what happens if you try to like apply a scheme to things with the block tag, that kind of stuff that we've kind of sorted through as well.
And the reason I asked this question, and especially interested in the recordings of these webinars, is because when we hand over these informations to more functional or QA focused team members, passing on the recorded session is always more meaningful to them than we communicating the selective snapshots or other things. So as soon as you can upload them, I think it will be a great enabler for us. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. Alrighty. Gonna talk about the migration website one more time in case you didn't know. We've moved everything over to our migration website now, which is at migrationconfigure.com. As far as the developer migration guides go, the QA guides can still be found on the support help articles if that's what you're needing. Some upcoming dates may be of interest to you. April 17th, we'll have the last of these migration workshops. That's also the day that the release candidate will be released, and the migration sign-off starts that day. On May 1st, the release sign-off has its deadline, and then May 15th is when the major release happens. Alrighty, then I think we'll go ahead and call this one. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you next time.